Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. I know it's a Sunday morning, but a bit more energy.
Morning. Morning.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I think for me, when Ajay asked me to come and have a chat with the young people, the reason I'm here is because of you. And the reason that I really wanted to be here is because I am you. I started exactly where you guys are, and I have been able to achieve what I have achieved mainly because of the people who've been around me, and because of the people who've guided me through the different challenges, the different educational system. And as Ajay was saying about 844 kids, I am an 844 kid, right? I went through that process. I continuously talk about some of the great things that this country has and some of the challenges that have befallen some of the schools. I went to Nairobi Primary School, which is not far from here. Studied there. We had a fantastic headmaster. I don't know if any of you guys know Mr. Agak. Probably, you're raising your hand. Probably one of the toughest teachers that I ever encountered, but also one of the most passionate people who really cared about the kids. It was about the students. One of the greatest stories that he gave us one day was about Jonathan Moy. And as you know, Jonathan Moy is the former president's son. And when Jonathan was going to Nairobi Primary, he was being naughty, and he was saying, you know, my dad is president. And what happened is they actually had the president come down to Nairobi Primary. And they said, you know what, cane him, right? In front of the president, Jonathan was caned by Mr. Agak. But that was the kind of headmaster he was, because, and I know nowadays the kids are not caned, but you know, we grew up in that system, and you know, has its pluses or minuses. But what was, for me, the moral of the story is that as a teacher, he actually stood on principle. It wasn't about shying away because someone is in power and the son of that person can misbehave. It was about every kid was equal, and every kid had to abide by the rules and regulations of that school. And to me, that is something that's really critical. As the young ones here grow up, I think you need to have that mentality of really abiding by the rules and regulations of the schools, which shape how you actually end up as a constructive member of society. It's really critical to have those rules and regulations that provide a certain framework for you to actually succeed in society, and in essence, to make society successful. So quickly, just going through a bit of my career to where I am to date. After Nairobi Primary, I went to St. Mary's, and then I went to Woodbury University in the US. Right after that, starting to work at a consulting company where I did an internship. The reason I'm talking about that is because of one of the points that Ajay talked about, which is mentorship and the importance of mentorship. And as parents and as mentors, it's really critical that you mentor the youth. Because for me, growing up, the people who I surrounded myself with were mostly doctors, lawyers, accountants, and those were the kinds of careers that were around me. So growing up, I only thought that my mother was in the medical profession, so I knew I was going to become a doctor when I grew up. And from a very young age, I actually used to go to her clinic. I actually learned how to clean and fix wounds, small wounds, etc. And really learned that process. And I knew I was certain, and all through primary school and high school and just before university, I knew I was going to be a doctor. The thing that I never had was much exposure to much else. I never knew about investment banking at all. Yes, I knew about accountants, I knew banks existed, but I only understood what investment bankers do late into my university, right? I never knew about consultants. I had one parent, a friend of mine's parent was a consultant, but I never really grasped exactly what they did. But there are all these different opportunities that you can learn. But after university, or while going through university, a great person actually took me under his wing and mentored me throughout. From that point, I did an internship with him at his consulting company, worked with key companies like Toyota, Journey, iWorks, etc., doing different research projects, and that propelled me into getting the job that I ended up getting at Warner Brothers. Without that mentorship, I guarantee you I would not be here today, right? And it was someone who basically gave me an opportunity because they believed in my abilities. And it's great to look at the young guys here, albeit quite young. But it's exciting because it starts from that age, and being able to expose people into different careers and not really just think of the traditional things that people are used to. It's really critical to say that you can actually do more than just what the traditional type of roles in the world, or that our parents grew up saying those are the professions that we as young people should take on. It's important to expose everyone to that. I heard that there was someone who was talking about art. Who was that? Tell me a little bit why you were interested in it.
Well, because orphans are kind of like, art is kind of like my passion, and I kind of have like a soft spot for orphans and like not just but children without parents. So I just kind of put the two together and made a project out of it.
Fantastic. What's your name?
Jeremy.
Jeremy. That excites me. That is something that over the last couple of months that I got back to Kenya, I've been back in Nairobi for the last almost 2 years now, 22 months or so. But one of the things that I realized is that art is something that people can actually build a career out of. Yet, very, very few people actually will encourage their children to actually follow that. And so what I've been doing over the last couple of years, and I'm sort of weaving different things, and at the end of it, it will all make sense, I promise. What I realized is that in Kenya at the moment, we do not have a proper infrastructure to encourage young people to grow up and become artists. Yet art is so critical to our society. It really is a documentation of what our culture is. And if you look at most cultures, even before writing, art was the way of documentation. And then you can think about all the great artists, the Van Goghs, the Picassos, etc. Right? Yet in Kenya, we actually don't encourage our youth to get into that. And it's exciting to hear Jeremy say that he's passionate about it. Over the last couple of months, I've actually started working with local artists here to encourage them and to break a system. I don't know if there are any gallery owners here, but to actually break that gallery system in Kenya and actually works around the world, where artists pay anywhere between 30 to 70% of the cost of the art to commissions to galleries, which I think is terrible, right? That has to change. And that's where Google and technology comes in, right? As country manager, it's not what I do, but as a passion and as someone who understands technology, I see an opportunity to actually say, what is a gallery? In essence, a gallery is a platform where artists take their art, put it in, and people go in and actually see that. And what technology has been able to do is democratize access to relationships. When you put art on a website, you can actually reach millions of people, and the artist can reach and own the relationship with the buyer, which is a really incredible thing. And so what I've been doing over the last couple of months, one is providing a space whereby it started accidentally, but by the last show that I did, we had about 12 artists and about 30 pieces of painting were sold between 12 and 6 p.m. in an afternoon, which is incredible, right? Most exhibitions do not sell that in an entire run of an exhibit. right? And what excited me about that and what the next phase is to create an online art exchange so that we can say that using technology, let's take that and have artists own that relationship so that when you guys are growing up, you can say, I will grow up and become an artist. I can live on that without having to pay exorbitant amounts of commission to galleries and really own that relationship, and that becomes a profession and a career. And that is the kinds of things that I think we need to encourage the youth to actually believe and see a different perspective of it. Talking on technology and dwelling a bit on that, when I look at you guys, and you are, I think most of you were born after cell phones, and you cannot imagine life without a mobile phone. For the older ones in the room, what's the first thing you do when you wake up? Before you kiss your husband or wife? Right? Grab your phone, check the time, or most probably it's actually what wakes you up. Right? And here's the interesting thing. Phones have now become part of what we do. And the phone is not just about the device. It's actually about the content, right? It's about the content that you're able to access using this device. Because none of you really care about the phone itself, but it's about what you can do with it. And what you can do with it is democratize learning. Technology has democratized learning. And as I look at the young people, Matilda, like you said, right? When I look at you young people, you're living in a really exciting time whereby you do not have to go to Cambridge or LSE or Harvard, right? Or Yale to actually get that quality education. And I'll give you an example. What's the greatest story that's been trending over the last couple of days about learning? No?
About learning. Teacher speak. The pay. You mean
Learning, internationally, globally. It's a big story.
Diego.
Thank you. Right? How did Diego learn how to be a Java?
Oh yes, YouTube.
YouTube. Right? Rewind 10 years ago. Would that be possible? Right? And it's about democratizing learning. It's about saying that, you know, if you have the passion to really study and learn something, now you do not need to actually go through all the barriers that perhaps I had to go through to learn, right? The reason Yale is such a great school, besides the professors, it's about the research that you find in the library and all the documents that you have there. And I encourage all of the young people in this room to be familiar with the Khan Institute, right? And use that as something that you can learn from. Because you have the best papers, the best research, all in a repository online, which you do not have to pay for. And the Khan Institute makes a concerted effort to make sure that nobody charges for any of their materials. And it's really phenomenal because that is all knowledge that sits there that you can actually be able to use. And with technology now, as I say, it democratizes learning and breaks those barriers that historically existed in the past, whereby if I did not grow up, go to a good school, have good teachers, and actually succeed in class and do my part, right? There's a clear sort of disparity between those who go to a good school and those who don't, right? Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm embarrassed to say that I'm one of the people who've never heard about the Khan Institute.
Okay.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. Khan Academy. So, Khan Academy, Khan, I can't remember his first name. He's a young guy who he's a professor, and he was trying to actually teach his nephews or something. The story is, that's what he was actually trying to do over Skype. But he actually realized that the kids were not that interested to pay attention to him every single moment when he was tutoring them, right? So they said, Uncle, why don't you actually record what you're doing And I can be able to read this later or watch this later, pause it when I feel like, go back if I want something repeated, or fast forward if, you know, it's a little bit slow. And now there's a massive repository of academic material that you can actually study. And it's really phenomenal. You should definitely familiarize yourself with it. Peter?
It breaks my heart because about 2 years ago I was on it and I couldn't understand. So I was like, I'm subscribed. So now to hear about it again,
Yes.
it's a shame to me because I just lost an opportunity to get.
Go on it. It's phenomenal. I think.
Posted it on the Beacon website about a year. I brought it up and gave it to you about a year or two ago, Beacon Scholars. And what's really good about it is that you can link in a tutor or a mentor and they can manage and they can keep an eye on what you're doing and what you're learning and what you're covering and what you're achieving. So it's very well managed.
It's phenomenal. Familiarize yourself with it. The young guys.
Khan.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's an app for it.
There's an app for it. It really is becoming a big deal in terms of learning. And there's another, I'll give you a bit of homework. Please go on YouTube, and I promise I'm not saying this because Google owns YouTube. Go on YouTube and search, and you'll see even why. It's nothing to do with Google. We just do it as a platform. Search for a video called The Future of Learning. Right? It's a 22-minute video. It's done by Ericsson, which is not owned by Google. And it really talks about how technology is changing the way we access information and how we learn. And also, more importantly, I'm ADD, right? I can barely spend a lot of time focused on the same thing, so I need to multitask and have like sort of 5 balls there so that each one of them keeps me interested and I sort of work my way through it. But what's really phenomenal when you're looking at watching this video, they're talking about the different needs of students, right? I guarantee of all the Beacon scholars here, no two of you are alike in terms of your needs for learning, right? Some of you learn faster, some of you are probably like me, hyperactive, they want to learn different things, you sit in class and you can't wait for the class to be finished because, you know, you want to move on to other things, etc. But the reality is, you know, with technology, you can learn at different paces and you can be able to change what's the mode of delivery. And as parents, as mentors, it's really critical to also look at some of these things so that when you're helping the young ones with homework, etc., you're actually adopting them to that. So that's something that I wanted to touch on. And then last but not least, something that I wanted to talk about, actually two last things, is 3 principles which for the young people in this room, I would hope that you think about as you go through school, as you go through your careers, as you go through your lives. And these are things that over the last, God knows how long, someone told me over 20, 25 years ago. They all start with A, so it'll be easy. Just think of 3 A's. The first one, which I think is the most important, is attitude. I'll go through them and then touch on each one of those. The second one is ability. And then last but not least is ambition. Right? So attitude. For the young ones in the room, and also the older ones, but I'm sure you already know this. You are as much to everyone as who you are in terms of your attitude. You know, as a person. Beyond me working at Google, at Warner Brothers, at Turner, at CNN, or whatever else, I am Charles. And that is the most important things, and that's the most important value that I hold, right? The attitude that I have, what I hold dearly, my principles, and the things that make me the person that I am. Whether I stop working at Google, at the end of the day, people will remember me or think of me or engage with me because of me as myself. And it's about that attitude that you always project. And for the young ones, it's really important, especially in this day and age, whereby things like bullying at schools has become such a big deal and a big problem, right? Stand out and stand up against those kinds of things. The integrity that you are talking about, have that, and really believe in those things which are critical, which make you really great citizens and great leaders in the future. Because if you don't have that great attitude, you know, you can govern, but I truly believe there's a massive difference between governors and leaders, right? And so for the young ones to grow up and be great leaders, I think it's really critical to have great attitude. And I know you're not writing this, but hopefully 10 years from now it will ring a bell. The second one is, ability. With ability, it's about what you're studying, how hard you study, and the effort you put into it, right? Really work hard. You know, most of us who grew up here, you remember the song? So many Vijana, right? Right? So I think the young ones in this room don't understand that song. But basically, it was something that at a very high level is something that you don't really think of as a young person growing up. But as you go through your life, you really understand the importance of it. You know, the song, it's, you know, study hard, put in, sorry?
Sing.
Not this morning. Sing with me, sing with me. So, let's sing together. But you see, with everything, right? Also, at some point we believe that Earth was flat, right? But things change, right? So, but I think the principles of that is still holds true, because yes, you get a good job doesn't mean you'll be employed.
Exactly.
Right?
I think it's the principle.
So you can, at the end of the day, it's about getting a good job, right? And that I think still holds true. And so as young people, you know, study hard, put in the effort, and please do not be afraid to sweat, right? And I guarantee you, there's one, no get rich quick scheme, right? There are no shortcuts to success. You have to put in the effort, right? As I look at the young faces here, you know, always remember that. You have to put in the effort. You cannot get good grades if you don't work hard at all, right? And for some people, working hard is different and it's all relative, but you still have to put in the effort, and I think that's really critical. Which leads to my last point of A, which is ambition. Shoot for the moon, right? Literally. At Google, there's something that we call moonshots. Has any one of you heard about moonshots? Please.
Isn't that where you know that you're overreaching, you're going for something that's impossible, but how far it will stretch you will be the surprise?
Exactly. And basically, it's a fantastic concept. Larry Page, as you know, nowadays we are part of an organization called Alphabet, which I think is fitting because, you know, it's the core of what we study and we learn as kids growing up. But the essence of what Larry Page believes in is that incremental improvement actually doesn't improve anything, right? If you believe in every single year as young people, growing yourself incrementally, it actually doesn't help you much. As a company, for those of us who are a bit older and run companies, if you consistently grow your company at 3, 4, 5% every year, right? you're going to be overtaken by a brand new company that doesn't even exist, right? So the idea is 10x. How do you make 10 times the change? And how do you leapfrog 10 times from where you are? So we call it the 10x thinking. And the 10x thinking is also coupled with the moonshot idea. And the moonshot idea is saying, we will shoot so far high or so far up so that whatever we achieve is still so much higher and so much greater than people who are just trying to do incremental sort of solutions, right? And I encourage all of you Beacon scholars here, if nothing else, take that thinking and really think of moonshots in your life, right? And when you think of moonshots, you will be the people who will find keys to answer, right? You will be the people who will find solutions to poverty in our nation and in our continent and in our world. Because the world that you live in and that you have to grow in, I'm sorry to say, is so different from the ones we grew up in, right? I know as parents, the one thing that you always work towards, and our parents worked towards, was give us a better life, or give your child a better life than you had. And I always say that nowadays, you probably can give your child more money, but not necessarily a better quality of life. So you have to work so much harder, and it's not because of your ability, it's because of the world that we live in, right? And we as parents, we as adults, have to give our children a better life and a better quality in terms of the world that we live in. And so it's really important to think about that, the 10x and the moonshot, and find solutions. And as for the youth, think as you grow, how do you change the world that you live in? Because it's in your hands. You're the ones who will really make massive differences in the world that we live in. And I will close on that.